snap. Hi. This was a fun night. It is dusting off really archaic parts of my memory, how to do programming. So my friend Steve was replying to my Facebook post, and he mentioned, and I should have remembered, that David Baum is the guy who wrote the new firmware for the RCX. And I've been using NQC. And so I hauled up my book for NQC, and there's even his name's right there, David Baum. A full power of the robots, you need a different programming environment. NQC is a programmable language written by David Baum. So this is what I use, NQC and Bricks XCC, which is a visual interface for NQC. Basically, you do the compile, you write your program here, and then BricsCC compiles it and uploads it to the RCX via the IR tower using NQC. Absolutely fantastic stuff, much easier to use for me anyway than the actual RIS software, visual software, graphical interface software. So I hauled up my book that I had printed off like a billion years ago. I found it. So anywho, thanks David, thanks to everybody. Thanks Mark Overmars for these wonderful and revisions by John Hansen. I never met these people, although I really thank them because they made my robot building way back in the day much easier, and then this one's much easier. So here's the setup now. There's the Monorail, there's the RCX, there's a light sensor, there's a rotation sensor. So the power to the rail, to the copper, comes off of port 1. The rotation sensor is plugged into port 1 up top. Port 3 has the light sensor connected to it, and the external power is just for the light, because there's a light beam. So the idea is, if nobody touches anything, which is fine, that the robot will do. I mean, the robot, I keep on thinking it's a robot. No, it's a monorail. The monorail would do what the monorail does, what I want it to do automatically, which is to stop at the various stations around the layout. And for this instance, the stations are this end and that end. So that's it. There's 2 monorail stations that the thing's going to stop at. Now, that's if nobody touches the rotation sensor. If somebody comes along, and because there's going to be a little whatever, stations out there with a little brochure, not a brochure, but a little tabletop that says, hey, turn this wheel and you can control the monorail. So the program has to do 2 things. It has to run it automatically when nobody's touching the wheel, and then it has to obey the person who is, controlling the actual monorail, and then go back to the automatic, stopping at the stations when the kid walks away. So that's what this program does. It took me a while to work out all the kinks in it. I had to use some semaphores. So I had to dig off some really obscure portions of my memory. Right now, the RCX is broadcasting because I had to use some timers too. Right now, timer 1 is up to 3,000. That doesn't matter. So with much further ado, I'm going to hit run. Beep, run. And you can see that the RCX, sorry, I keep on saying it, the robot, that's not, the monorail goes through, goes around the loop and stops at the train stations, which are at both ends of the loop. That's just a timer that's set every time, reset every time the monorail goes through here. You can hear the little beep. It counts the number of milliseconds to there, and it stops. It's right in the code. A few more milliseconds, and it goes to there, and it stops. And basically, it'll keep on doing this. Now, this is a small loop, so it gets pretty repetitive and boring. But on the when on the actual layout, of course, it's got 3 or 4 stations to get to, and I'll have them all timed out, so the monorail will stop at all 3 or 4 stations, which is fantastic. I think it adds to it. The issue is, and I can go into this now, if I was using LDCC, the lights would still be on when the monorail is stopped, because there's still 9 volts going to the monorail. It's just that the LDCC chip has stopped the motor, and the lights would still be working. Just using the RCX, powering the rails like this, the lights are only on when it's moving. It's a deficiency, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. So that works perfectly fine. As you can see, in a second, I'm going to let it run because this is even fun. So I'm going to let it run, come back on. And then now I can control the monorail. I can make it slow down, make it go backwards when it gets to the backwards. Now I might change. This is the problem. so it makes it go backwards. And then what I said is that if the kid leaves for 2.5, well, right now we're looking at the timer, it's going to go up to, I think, 25 seconds. Right now it's pulling at 127, 134. I think I said 250. So about 25 seconds if there's no input into the rotation sensor. Should be coming up right on now. It goes back into its normal thing, which is going back to stop at the stations. And I think that's perfectly acceptable. So when there's no kid playing with the speed controller for the monorail, it just goes back to its standard program, automatic program, which is to stop at every single, let me get light wires out of the way. And of course I touched it. Every time you breathe on the rotation sensor wrong, it registers. So I'm going to leave that alone, and you can see it again. Just slow it right down because it's fun when it goes from stupid slow to. So 25 seconds from now, whatever that's going to be, it's going to go back into its regular haunt. So right now the kid walks away. This thing still sits there, think it's going to be touched. I might reduce that number. I don't know if 25 seconds is too long a time to go back to its standard program. But and there we go. Now it's going to go back, cut the light sensor, and there you go. So that works well if the pickups work. And that's the number one critical concern right now. The pickups have to work. Because if that thing gets stalled on the track, that means I'm babysitting this. And I'm going to have to just give it a quick nudge and to keep it going. And I don't want to do that. So I have to come up with a way of getting the power pickups working at least 99.9% of the time. But this is where we are. I think that's perfectly acceptable. I have a nice little program here. One RCX is being controlled. Now, I did on my last, when I did the layout on the driveway last year, or 2 years ago, I can't remember now. I used one RCX to power 2 rails, 2 different monorail loops. And I didn't want to go for 3, but I might go for 3. But how many of these am I going to do? Am I going to allow the kids to control all 4 monorail loops? I don't know. Because obviously that would require 2 RCXs. So I will have to see if I just want them to control 1 monorail loop, the big one possibly. And then I can still have the other 2, because this thing the light doesn't have to be powered by the RCX. I can just connect an external power supply to that thing and have it on 100% of the time. That's just so the light sensor will see the light beam cut. So that doesn't have to be on there. So I can actually have 3 different loops powered by 1 RCX, and only one of them that would have manual control override by the public. I think that's a good idea to start, but my biggest concern, as I keep on saying, is the power pickups. Now, this thing has been running all night by itself. I've rarely had to touch it. I've had to touch it 2 or 3 times to get it moving because it stops in a dead spot. But if the kids come along and they make it go really slow, let's see if I can get stupid slow. So it's slowing down, slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. Let's leave it that. That's slow. It may find a bad spot and get stuck. Like there. So now it is stuck, see? Oh, that's not. Huh, thing surprised me. And now the thing's gonna kick in pretty soon. This isn't bad. No, I don't expect it at a show when it's going this slow along the copperized track. See, now it's dead. So, and even if it goes back into default mode, which should be coming. There it is. It's supposed to be going fast now. It's stuck, so I have to touch it, and it goes fast again. Right? So that's the issue. I don't want to babysit this thing. And it'll stop. So there you go. Now we're back into automatic mode where it stops at the train stations. So it is disheartening that it does stop, that the power pickups do not stay 100% in contact with the copper rails at all times. I might revert back to the braided wire. The problem is with braided wire, you can't go backwards because it wrecks the braid. So with the flat copper pieces I put on the bottom for the pickups, I can go forwards and backwards and not worry about it. So there's so many different things you can do, but every single one of them adds a different issue. Braided wire that they used in the old slot cars would be perfectly fine if it was only going in one direction. And I mean, I can change the program so you can just go variable speeds going in one direction, but where's the fun in that? And the fun is going backwards. So I like the idea of it going backwards. So it's going backwards now, right? I think that's fun. I think the kids will like that, right? And maybe I will reduce the time because I just stopped using it. There's another 20 seconds to get there. And maybe this is just too long a time. But anyway, this is my issue. It really is. But in the end, it's fun to think about. It's fun to program, and then we're back to it going in the right direction and stopping at the various stations. So there you have it, folks. I'm done programming for the night. It's late. I'm going to go to bed now. I'm going to leave the RCX. I'm going to turn the RCX off right now. So the RCX is off. The one more point before I go to bed, and this is the sad part. So this is the power going to the rails, and you don't want to short that out, but that is just by tonight, those were all black, and you can see all these black Moodoo fleckies down here. Little pieces have been flaking off as I've been moving this thing around, and also for the light sensor over there. So it's disheartening. I will replace it, to at least this lead, with this guy. This is the one I've made. I take these ends apart and I put in my own wire that I picked up over at the electronic superstore. And it is supposedly the same gauge as the old ones. It worked just fine, but it is a lot of work to poke off the ends and put the new wire in. But I'm going to have to do that. And I just don't know how I'm going to do that with the light sensor. Because the light sensor, I can't pull the end off. I might have to come up with a different solution to put a new end on that. But that's another story for another time. So there you go, peoples. That's everything I need to talk about tonight. So everybody stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.